Hearing from author and ADHD coach Leanne Maskell, who was diagnosed with the condition at 25. Symptoms of ADHD include a short attention span, constantly fidgeting and acting without thinking. Currently, there is a worldwide shortage of ADHD medication, and this impacts us here in the Channel Islands as well. So Harry spoke to Leanne about how this medication shortage has affected her.
There's global ADHD medication shortages right now, and it affects a number of different types of medication. The medication I take, Elbance, it said that there will be global shortage disruptions until April 2024 at least. And this is apparently due to supply chain issues. But there's not very much information out there available. There's no information about what people should do in the meantime, whether they should go off this medication, change to a different kind. Because, for example, with me, if I wanted to change my type of medication, I would need to see the NHS psychiatrist. And my GP's waiting list is 7 years to do that. So I don't really have the option to change the type of medication that I'm on. I've just been left without any access for 2 months to this. And it's only been by going into so many, I'm going to a pharmacy probably every day to annoy them. And my friends and family have also done the same for me, luckily. And I was able to get some this month, but it's left hundreds of thousands of people in the lurch and affected their ability, particularly in work and in their relationships, because not only is that medication not available right now for so many people, but also there's no information about what to do in the future and whether this will continue or for how long.
So for you, when you find yourself in a situation whereby you're looking at months ahead and wrestling with will I or will I not be able to access a medication which is effectively saving your life, what would you do in those scenarios? Are there any tips for anyone who has ADHD who might not be medicated yet or is waiting for medication to be able to, I suppose, function in a way that allows them to live a normal life?
Luckily, I'm an ADHD coach and I run a company called ADHD Works, which trains ADHD coaches. So yes, which is information I didn't have before. So basically, it's things like exercise, eating right, all of the things that their medication ironically helps you to do. Having really strict routines where you're making sure that you're doing, for example, the most important task first in the day, putting your phone away as much as you can, distractions. It's the kind of things we do in ADHD coaching anyway, where people can create the environments for them, because the pills don't give you skills, essentially. They give you more ability to focus, but they don't help you necessarily choose what to focus on. But the more that you can learn about your ADHD and the way that your brain works and what your specific challenges are, the more you can create strategies that will work for you. For example, for me, I've really tried to step up going to yoga every morning. And for me, I won't go unless I wear my pajamas as my gym clothes. And then I wake up and I get out the door by 6 o'clock in the morning, don't look at my phone, and then I manage to go to yoga. But because the medication shortages have meant that these things are even more important than they are normally for me, I've really prioritized these basic self-care, because that's what helps us to basically stay functioning. And then I would say really importantly is to talk to people in your life, talk to your employer. If you go on adhdworks.info, we've got templates that people can use to write to their employers. Even if it's not you yourself that is affected, but you want to tell them on behalf of your colleagues that might be experiencing this. But talk to your manager, talk to your friends and family and ask them for help, because they can be really helpful kind of body doubles in reminding you to do things like eat 3 meals a day, avoid alcohol, I think would be a really important one as well. I didn't realize personally until I stopped taking it this time how much it affected me, because alcohol, because without it, the medication makes you less impulsive. So naturally I was more impulsive. And then when I was drinking alcohol also makes you more impulsive. So being more aware of potentially risky adrenaline type substances or activities, and really making sure that you focus on your environment and the strategies around that.
ADHD and other conditions are being made more into they're having a sort of spotlight moment at the moment when it comes to things like TikTok. You only need to open your phone and someone's basically telling you that you have ADHD. So I wanted your opinion on that. As someone who has ADHD, who has the condition, do you think that the increased awareness, when does it become useful and when does it become a problem, in your opinion? Because I'm sure that you're seeing those things as well.
Yeah, this is something I'm really passionate about. When I was diagnosed, there was no information whatsoever on the internet about ADHD in women. And I was really fortunate to come across a podcast where someone was talking about it. And that's what enabled me to accept that diagnosis. So, when I went to get diagnosed, I didn't even think I had ADHD. So it's great that we're in a position where there's more people that can learn about what they have without necessarily having to get to that crisis point, and be able to put the routines and strategies in place for them to work with their brains essentially and have that understanding, especially because the waiting lists are so long in the UK. So that's a great thing that there's more awareness and education. But the challenge is that there's so much of it and there's so much misinformation, and on social media, if it's free, you are probably the product. So there's so much targeted advertising. Things like TikTok can really drag you in and keep you scrolling for hours and hours, wondering what's wrong with you. It's really easy to fall prey to different people that might be targeting you because they think that you might have ADHD, and actually, like impulsive spending, for example. So I think it's really important to be aware that when we're on the internet, what we see on there might not necessarily be 100% accurate, but also it might be really, really helpful. And if it validates your experiences, that's really, really useful. I would say my advice is to think about what you are consuming and like what you want to do with that information, because it can be really easy. Like personally, when I was going through my experiences of really severe mental health crises, I would just Google mental health conditions all day. It wasn't ADHD, it was bipolar and borderline personality disorder. It can be really addictive to actually spend your time consuming endless amounts of information. The comparison for me, the reason I wrote this book, ADHD and A to Z, was because 6 years ago, there was no information out there. And now every single person I meet has some kind of experience with ADHD, or they know someone that is trying to get an assessment. And really the problem with this isn't social media, but it's our broken healthcare systems, meaning that people are all having to go out there and support themselves. So I think just be really aware of what you consume and remember to try and take a break from the internet.
For anyone who's currently waiting for a referral or has recently got a diagnosis of ADHD, what would you say to them as someone who's been aware and experienced the condition since you were in your 20s?
I think I would say that you should just accept yourself. It doesn't change who you are. That assessment won't change who you are. Being told you have ADHD, especially if you feel like you already have it, and I'm sure if that's you, you probably read everything in the world on it. There's so much information out there, but ultimately it's just part of who you are, and that isn't a bad thing. It's not an illness. You're not disordered despite the name, but it's just part of you. And the more that you can understand how your brain works and accept it and embrace it really, and create a life that works for you instead of trying to fit yourself into a box and question what's wrong with you and try to fix yourself, but to know that there's not actually a fix because you're not broken, so you don't need to be fixed. And the nicer and kinder you can be to yourself, the better your life will be, whether you have ADHD or not.
Really good advice there from Leanne Maskell, ADHD coach and author of multiple books, including ADHD A to Z. And if you've been affected by anything you've heard this afternoon, you can seek free support and information on bbc.co.uk/action line. And for more information on ADHD, you can visit adhdworks.info. And if you're experiencing symptoms of ADHD or concerned